I wasn't supposed to go back to Greystone Hollow. Nobody really was. It was the sort of place people moved away from, a forgotten speck on the map nestled deep in the Catskill Mountains. The kind of place that time forgot, and that fog cloaked like a shroud. Crumbling stone walls split the overgrown fields, and rusted metal signs swayed in the cold wind, their faded letters barely legible. The radio signals were dead. Even the birds seemed to avoid it. Silence hung heavy in the air, the kind of silence that feels alive, like it's listening, waiting. I hadn't set foot there since I was 8 years old, since the last summer before we left for good. But after my mother died, alone, quietly, and with her last words barely a whisper, I had to go. She had said, "Don't let the well speak again," and those words haunted me. The house was still standing, though barely. I found it through a curtain of mist, half swallowed by moss and ivy. Its windows were empty, black holes like blind eyes staring into the gray sky. The porch sagged, the wood splintered and soaked with rot. The smell hit me before I reached the door, mildew, damp earth, and something else. Something faintly sweet and rotting, like a memory gone bad. I remembered the key. She'd told me where to find it, over and over when I was a child, behind the Virgin Mary statue under the hollow stone at her feet. My fingers trembled as I knelt, feeling the rough moss beneath them, and there it was, cold, heavy, and old. Inside, the house had not changed. Dust blanketed every surface like a thick carpet. The crooked grandfather clock still hung on the wall, frozen at 2:17, its pendulum long stopped. The wallpaper peeled at the corners, faded into ghostly patterns of flowers and vines. The air was thick and still, like the house itself was holding its breath. In the hallway hung a faded painting, the one I'd stared at 100 times as a kid. A girl standing at the edge of a stone well. Her back was turned to the viewer, her dress a swirl of gray fabric that seemed to blend with the fog. But I never looked closely before. Now I saw her face was hidden, her features lost to time and grime. The first hours were a crawl of unease. Dust motes floated in the beams of light from the cracked windows. Doors creaked and sometimes closed on their own, slow and deliberate, as if pushed by a hand unseen. I told myself it was just the old house settling, the wind, my imagination, but the house felt wrong. Night came fast in Greystone Hollow. The sky darkened under a thick blanket of clouds, and the fog crept closer, swallowing the orchard and creeping along the broken stone walls. I tried to sleep in my old bedroom upstairs, the one with the slanted ceiling and the cracked mirror above the dresser. But as darkness deepened, the murmurs started. At first, it was nothing more than a sound caught at the edge of hearing, a faint curling noise like the wind twisting through a narrow stone pipe, like breath against the back of my neck. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the forest outside, or my mind playing tricks. But the sound grew, steady, rhythmic, almost like chanting, but broken, halting as if someone were trying to remember words that had long been forgotten. I followed it, drawn by some part of me I couldn't explain. The sound pulled me downstairs, past the rotting kitchen, out the door, and beyond the leaning tool shed that sagged under years of neglect. The orchard stretched before me, wild and tangled, the trees bare and clawed by frost. And there it was, the well. It looked exactly as it had that last summer, but also different, like a living thing that had grown in the dark. The stones were slick with moss and twisting vines, thick and pulsing like veins beneath my fingers. The wooden lid was gone, swallowed by time and rot. A yawning black mouth opened at the earth's surface, and I could feel cold air pouring out, carrying a scent that was impossible to place. Old death mixed with something sweet and terrible. That night, I dreamt of the girl in the painting. She turned to face me, but her eyes were empty sockets, dark hollows that swallowed light. Her mouth was sewn shut with rusty wire, the rough stitches biting into her pale skin. In her hand, she held a stone. It was wet, slick with something that glistened in the dim light. Symbols were carved into it, strange looping shapes that felt alive, pulsing beneath my skin even as I stared. She placed the stone in my palm and whispered, "You were promised." I woke up with dirt beneath my fingernails, the taste of something cold and iron-heavy on my tongue. The days that followed were a slow unraveling. The murmurs grew louder, clearer. I heard my name carried on the wind. I heard my mother's voice, soft, pleading, and broken. And beneath them something else, something not human, guttural and wet. A sound that wasn't quite noise, but more like a vibration crawling through my spine, making my skin crawl. In the attic, among broken trunks and forgotten memories, I found journals. My mother's written in shaky ink, my grandmother's yellowed and brittle with age, and one even older, from someone named Maureen Everling, dated 1834. Each journal described the well, not just as a pit in the earth, but as a presence, a thing, a gate between worlds, a prison, or perhaps a womb. Every 3 generations, the women in our bloodline were chosen, marked, bound to the well to keep it quiet, to feed it dreams, memories, and blood, just enough to keep it sleeping, until one tried to stop it. That was my mother. 30 years ago, she sealed the well's lid, cut her palm open, recited a counter prayer she found in an old Latin book. She delayed the well's hunger, slowed its voice to a whisper, but she couldn't kill it. And now, it wanted me. The murmuring became a scream. I tried to leave. My car's battery was dead. My phone refused to turn on no matter how long I charged it. The forest around the house twisted and changed, trees where none had grown before, paths vanishing into thick black shadows, the whole landscape breathing in and out like a beast. I decided to finish what she had started. That night, I carried her journal down to the well. The ritual was written in her frantic hand, scrawled across pages stained with blood and candle wax. I recited the words, sprinkled salt, and dropped in an heirloom locket soaked with my own blood. The murmuring turned into a scream. Thousands of voices, 1,000 sorrows and hungers pouring from the well's dark throat. Shadows oozed from the orchard's edges, twisting and half-formed, dripping with birth and bone. I screamed and threw in the last part, her ashes sealed in a tiny urn. And then, silence. The well went quiet. The forest exhaled. I left at dawn, packed only what I could carry, never looked back, but even now, years later, I still hear it. In water pipes, in radios with no signal, in the cold night wind when I walk alone, the murmuring, softer now, but there, because the well didn't die. It remembers me, and it waits.